you so much. I just wanted to speak about freedom of speech for a moment, tell you a very brief story. I started in radio in must have been 67 at WITL, AM and FM, Lansing, Michigan, as a country western DJ. And a few years later, I bounced around a couple stations in Lansing, and a few years later, I was back there doing news. And so this was probably 69, 70, 71, somewhere in that time period. And at that time, there was really no talk radio. There was nobody talking back to anybody. We just reported. And I was in the newsroom one morning. It was around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. There was a DJ who was on the air on the other side of the building, and it was me and Bob, the news director. And I don't think the engineer had even come in yet. Sales staff wasn't there. And these two guys came in wearing virtually identical black suits with black ties and shiny black shoes. And we looked out the window, and there was a state police car out there. And they asked us who we were, and we told them our names. They asked us for ID. We gave them our ID. We gave them our driver's license. They wrote all this stuff down. They asked us our social security numbers and our date of birth. And I'm like, what's going on? And finally, one of the guys was also rather conspicuously wearing a gun. The guy who wasn't wearing a gun says, we're going to be doing a small activity down the road, about 15, 20 miles down the road. There's a group of people involved with the Michigan militia, and they have not been paying their federal income taxes because they don't recognize the federal government. And he said, we're going to bust. My recollection is it was around 25 or 30 people this morning. It's going to have a mass arrest. And we would appreciate it if you did not cover this story. I mean, just came right out and said it, because we don't want to encourage this kind of thing. And the tone of voice and the posture of these guys was, we know who you are. We know where you are. We will not forget. He left. They left. I turned to Bob, who was my boss, and about 5 years older than me. I was like, what, 18 at the time. And I said, what are we going to do? And because my instinct was to immediately flip open the microphone and say, you're not going to believe what just happened. And Bob said, we're not going to do this story. To this day, that is one of the great regrets of my life. But the reason I tell you this story is because back then there was no talk radio. There was nobody talking back to the voices of authority. There was nobody talking back to the voices of power. Whether it's conservative talk radio or liberal talk radio, it doesn't matter. Whether it's Alan Berg, who got machine gun or killed, shot by the skinheads in Denver, 34 states, blowtorch station back in the 70s, I think it was, or whether it's a conservative, it was whatever. Because of the presence of talk radio in this nation, in our media milieu, over the last, arguably, really strongly, I mean, Limbaugh came on the air in '87. I think Alan Berg paved the way. I mean, you could say Father Coughlin had, but from the time the Catholic Church pulled him off until Alan Berg, there was really nobody. And then after Alan Berg was shot, everybody shut up until Rush came on in '87. But basically, for the last 20 years or so, from '87 until now, we have found our voice to speak back to authority. And I really and truly believe that because of you in this room, who should, as Michael, as you correctly said, should all be getting this Freedom of Speech Award, because of this industry, because of the talk radio industry, then if anybody from the government or any other organization, some big corporation, were to walk into your newsroom or into your studio and say, we'd really appreciate if you wouldn't cover this story, I don't think they would get the response that they got from Bob and I back in the early 70s. So I want to thank you all. Thank you for this award. Thanks so much to Talkers Magazine for making this industry so great.